Hello everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon, yeah. So how many of you have attended keynote? Good. How many of you have worked on data cloud so far? Okay, very little people. Generative AI? Little people, good. So I'm going to talk about how you can use data cloud and AI together to build rich customer experiences. So it's going to be a kind of end-to-end implementation story where we'll take a use case and I'm going to take you through that use case. But before I start, safe harbor. I know you would have seen this slide many times since morning, I'm sure. Yeah, if you are making any purchase decisions, please base your decisions only on what are generally available. I might be talking about few of the things which may be in beta, right, or maybe in pilot. So please don't base your decisions on what I'm talking. Just make your decisions based on what are generally available. With that said, I want to thank you all. I know it's afternoon time. You would have had lunch. It would be heavy, I know. So thank you for being here, attending this session, and thank you for whatever you're doing and for the community, whatever you're doing for the software industry, wherever you're working. Thank you for being here today with me for this session. I'm Satya Sekhar, a developer advocate with Salesforce. As part of my role, I motivate developers to build applications on Salesforce platform. So that's my role. That's for what Salesforce pays me. Okay. So before I start, like I said, we are going to see how we can use data cloud and AI together to build the solutions. First, let's start by, I know many of the people sitting here, they did not work on data cloud. So we'll start with that. We'll understand how data cloud works, and then we'll take the use case scenario and see each of those steps. Your data might be located in different siloed sources at different places. The first challenge is to get all of the data into a single place and then start using the data rather than having the data in multiple places. That's what we do in data ingestion phase, wherein we are going to get the data from different sources into the data cloud. That process is called as data ingestion. Once you get the data, I know, let's assume like you have your data in YouTube, your data in LinkedIn, your data in X, so many places your data is spread with the same profile. You are getting all of that information together here, in which case what happens is you end up getting 4 different records from 4 different sources. And all of these sources, we don't know how the data is organized in each of these sources. It may be a different format. So the first step is to bring all of this data into one single format. That's what you're going to do in the data harmonization step. Once you get the data from different sources and put it into one common format, you are going to clean up the data. Now you know that you have 4 different records. Now you want to make it as one single record. That's what you're going to do in data unification. So that is the third step. Now you got all the data where you have harmonized the data, and then you have cleaned the data and unified the data. Now you have single source of truth. Now you have one record which corresponds to one particular profile, right? So once you have all of the data clean, you can use the data. So that is the activate phase. Maybe you want to use it within your Salesforce platform using flows. Maybe you want to use it with Apex, or even you want to use it with your latest generative AI. Now you want to use generative AI to query the data. You can do all of that stuff through all of these 4 phases. Now, like I said, I'm going to take you through a journey, a kind of implementation of end-to-end story. So we are going to use a use case. So today's use case is going to be a e-bikes app. So there is a fictitious org called e-bikes. Now it is one of the sample apps that you can find on the developer website. You can always check out that sample app and try it out yourself. I'm going to share the resources towards the end of the session. But this app has all of the information related to a retail e-bike store. Now it stores information about its contacts. Yeah, let me open the e-bike store here. Okay, this is the e-bike store, and it stores the information about the contacts. Now there are many contacts here. I want to bring all of this contact information into the data cloud. That's one thing I want to do. And the second thing I want to do is I also want to get the product information. This e-bike store has various e-bikes, and then I want to get all of this information into my data cloud so that I can process it. So this is what we are going to do. And then if we get into one of the e-bikes here, you can see that the details of the e-bikes, nothing so special. It's all Salesforce. It's the same kind of user interface here. And then when you get into the related tab, here is where you can see the purchased bikes. So there are no purchased bikes for this particular contact, but yeah, you can find few purchased bikes here, wherein it is a junction object between your e-bikes product and your contact. A contact can purchase bikes, different bikes. So that's what we have here. So I want to get this information into my data cloud. So that is first source which we are going to use. And the second source from where I want to get the information is there is a public facing website. So yeah, even before showing that, you can see a product explorer which has a a nice user interface which is built using the Lighting web components in the e-bike CRM app itself. We have a similar kind of interface which is public facing. So this is the public facing interface, which has same kind of tiles here where you can select a specific tile and then you can purchase that particular product. Imagine it to be very much similar to your Amazon shopping, where you search for the different items, purchase a specific item. Now when you select this, you can see the details here. So I want to get the information from this public facing site as well. So the first source is or CRM, the second source is from a website. I want to get the information. Not only this, this electronic store sells the bikes which are intelligent, which are IoT enabled. So these bikes can send the information about the bikes itself. For instance, I want to know the battery status. So the battery status information is sent to the data cloud. Now I want to get that information into the data cloud. Similarly, I want to see all the health related aspects of that e-bike in my data cloud. So this is the third source from where I want to get the data. Now I talked about three different sources: CRM and a public facing website, and the third one is the bike itself, which is emitting the information, which is sending the information about itself. So that's what we are going to do in our first step, data ingestion. So these are the three sources: CRM data, public facing website, and IoT data of the bike. Now let's see how we can ingest that data into Salesforce. So in order to get the data into your Salesforce org, you need to first set up the connector. You need to create an integration between your source and your data cloud org. So that you are going to do in two simple steps. One is you are going to set up the connector. The second one is you create the data stream. Once you set up the connector, you are going to create a data stream to flow in the data. Now, Salesforce also provides some of the connectors out of the box. You can also use those connectors. If you want, you can configure those connectors and then create a data stream to get the data. Once you get the data into the data cloud, it has to be stored somewhere. It is going to be stored in an object called data lake object. So whatever data is ingested into data cloud, it is going to be stored in a data lake object. Now let's see all of this with our example. Now here I am back in the org where you can open the data cloud. So data cloud, you can access it as a app right from your org. So this is the data cloud app where you can see different things, different tabs here like data stream, data lake objects, data model, so on and so forth. Each of these tabs corresponds to a specific feature. Maybe if I want to create the data streams, I'm going to use data streams tab to create the data streams. We are going to touch few of these tabs in our implementation journey today. But the first things first, we need to configure the connector. We need to create the connector. So where do you configure the connector? Like any other Salesforce setup, you can find the configurator, all the configurations that you can do from the setup icon here. You can click the gear icon at the top right corner, and then you can click on the data cloud setup. Once you click the data cloud setup, this is what you see. If you are setting up the data cloud for the very first time, you have easy to understand steps there, written there. You can just follow those steps to configure your very first implementation of the data cloud. But then, as I told, for our use case, we are going to set up the connector for the integration. Now, if you see here, there are Salesforce integrations and there are external integrations. Now, we have 3 different use cases. The first use case was to get the data from the CRM. So, we are going to create a Salesforce integration for that. For other 2 cases, we are going to use the external integrations. Now, let's see how we can create a Salesforce integration for the CRM. Now, I click this Salesforce CRM here. And when I click the new button, here you can see an option to connect to a Salesforce org. Now, you just click this and say next. It is going to take you to the login screen of your Salesforce org where you can enter the credentials and it is connected. You really need not worry about how you are authenticating. It's all taken care of. Now, the only thing is you click that button, log into your Salesforce org, and the connector is created and it is connected to your Salesforce org. Now, I have already done this in the interest of time for this demo. So, I have connected a Salesforce demo org. I called it as Salesforce demo org, and I just created a connection. Once I create the connection, I get all of the bundles that are there, all of the sales, service, whatever is there, that are there in my CRM available for me. We are going to see how we can use it. Now, in the second case, we wanted to get the information from a website. For that, you are going to use the external integration. Now, if you see here, you have the external integrations, different integrations that are possible. So you can integrate with Snowflake, or you can integrate with websites and mobile apps, so on and so forth. In our case, I said it's an external website. So let's choose this. I'm going to choose these websites and mobile apps. This is where I can configure the connector, create the new connector for my website. So how do I do that? I just click new and give some connector name. Let me call it as say demo 4. I've been doing this few times. So demo 4, and it is going to be a website, not a mobile app. So I'll select a website here and simply say save. Now, once you save this, you can see the connector details at the top. Let me also zoom in a little bit. Maybe I'll make it as 110%, so that it will be easy for you to see. Fine. So here you can see the connector details, and then you have an important step here called schema. Now, I'm storing the data in the website. Data Cloud doesn't know how I'm storing the data, what are the different objects, what are the different fields, so on and so forth. So what we can do is we can upload the schema in the form of JSON into the Data Cloud. Now, you can define what are the different objects and fields that you have in your website and upload it using these upload files here, and upload it to the Data Cloud. So in our case, what I've done is I've already uploaded. Let me go back to websites and mobile apps. I've already created a schema for our requirement. Here I've created something called as eBikes LWR. Here I've already uploaded a schema where you can see the objects. Now, if you want to see how this JSON file would look like, I have one example JSON file here. So here we are having a cart object, and then in that cart object we have various fields like category, date, time, so on and so forth. So all of these objects you are going to put it in the JSON format and you are going to upload it. And once you upload it, this is what you see here. These are the different events. Let us see view full schema. So these are the different objects that got uploaded with that particular JSON file. And this object has various fields. Now you can see what is the schema that is uploaded and what are the different fields. Now you uploaded the JSON and you know what are the objects and fields in your website. Now, what is our third use case? We wanted to get a data from the bike itself, right? The smart bike is emitting some data, and we also want to store the data in the Data Cloud. So that you can do using something called as ingestion API. There is a third option here called ingestion API. When I click ingestion API and say new, I only need to give the connector name and save it. And this has a similar structure just like our website. Now, if I've already created one here when I click on this, let us say live bike data, and you can see you have the connector details just like what we have done for the website, and you have a schema. So for the bike also, you are going to upload the schema in the same format like JSON format, and then you have all of the data available here. Okay. In this case, I'm sending the battery status and the daily travel. These are the two different things I want to keep track of. So I'm sending these two objects here. So whenever there is a battery related thing or the number of miles that customer drives, so all of that information we are going to get into the data cloud. Okay. So out of these 4 steps, we have done the data ingestion so far. Now if you go back to the deck, so we have done the data ingestion where we are going to get all of the data. Now the next step is to do the harmonization. But even before that, in the previous step, I've left off one step here. We also need to create the data stream. We just created the connector. Now the next step is to create the data stream. So let's go and see how we can create data stream. Now, like I said, you can access the data cloud app from your app launcher. And here is the data cloud. Let me click this. Let me open it. And like I said, each tab corresponds to a specific feature. In this case, it corresponds to the data streams feature. So I'll go to the data streams tab. And here is where you can create a data stream. You can click on the new button here, wherein you can see Salesforce CRM, website, and ingestion API. These are the 3 things that we have just configured. These are the 3 different connectors for our 3 different sources. So these are the connectors that we have just created and configured. But then, if you wish, there are various other connectors that you can use. Maybe you want to integrate with Gmail, get some information from the Gmail, or you want to get it from some kind of FTP or FTPS. So there are various connectors that you can directly use in order to create the stream. In our case, for instance, I want to create a Salesforce CRM stream. Now I'll select Salesforce CRM here, and I click Next. When I do this, if you remember, you can see it's still loading, no worries, but you can see that it is connected to the Salesforce demo org. It's not that you just connect to one Salesforce org, you can connect to multiple Salesforce orgs, and then select whatever Salesforce you want. You can select that org, and then create the stream for that org. Once it loads, that's fine, even if it takes little time. You have 2 options here at least. You can see, yeah, it loaded. Now you have 2 options. One is the data bundles. The other one is the all objects. Now you have some data bundles. For instance, if you are working with the sales related stuff, you want to get the sales related objects. Like when I click this, here you can see that it is going to get you the account, contact, and lead object. Now if you want to also get the individual objects, not just like a bundle for sales or service, you can even do that by going and clicking all objects here. And here you can select whichever object you want. You can select specific object, and you also have control over the fields, whichever fields you want to get it into the data cloud. Okay. So these are the different ways, and then when you say next and then confirm, you would have created the stream. So again, I've done these 2 steps, and I've created streams here. So you can see various streams here. There are different streams, and if you notice, it shows the connector. This is from Salesforce CRM. You got some product information from CRM. Similarly, you got the contact information from CRM, and then some behavioral things you got from the website. So you can get all of this information, how do you send the behavioral things from the website? If you go to the eBucks LWR, so here when a user clicks a specific tile, I want to send that information. Let me opt out first. So I'll select a specific tile here, and I want to send that information to the data cloud. So here you can see that the event was not sent. So I clicked, I've done a behavioral event. I want to send that event. I've already created this stream, but I want to send that event, but I could not send that event. The reason is, whenever you are sending the information from the websites, you should always take the consent of the user. So Salesforce provides you the facilities to send the event from external websites and also send the consent. Now, how do you set up that? So once you create the connector, if you let me go to connector once again very quickly. Once you see this website connector, you saw that we have got this, we have uploaded all of these objects, and if you go down at the bottom, you can see a link here, a link to a JavaScript library file. Once you create the connector, the library file link is there with you. You can just copy that link and paste it wherever in your HTML file in your website. So I've just copied this and I've placed it in my website here. This is my website, where in the script I just pasted that URL. And then once I paste that URL, you have access to the SDK, web SDK, wherein you have methods to call the send the event. For instance, when you see here app.js, here you can see that I'm using a Salesforce interaction class that is part of your web SDK. Using that, I'm sending the event. Whenever a user clicks on a specific element, I'm sending the information about that product. I'm sending the product ID, I'm sending the product name to the data cloud. I'm sending all of this information to the data cloud. Likewise, I said it also provides the option for you to send the consent, take the consent of the user. So there is a library wherein you can handle opt-in or opt-out consent. If the user opts in, only then you send the event to the data cloud. Now we have these options. If you see in the app, so I've just put a button here just for the opt-in consent. So I'll say opt-in, and then let me clear this. And when I click any of these things, you can see that it sends a event. It sends an event. It sends the type of the, what is the type of the object, which is product, what is the name of the object, what is the ID of the object, whatever we have configured, all of that information is sent whenever there is an interaction here. Now you got all of this information into your data cloud. So these are the different streams. So in our case, the e-bike's behavioral aspect, you have sent it through this stream, website and mobile apps connector type. Through that, you got all of this information related to the website. Similarly, you got information related to the bike status from the ingestion API, and then you got the product and contact information from the Salesforce CRM. Now you have that information. The next step is to harmonize the data. So you have all of the data sitting in a data lake object. I'll show you how it sits. You are going to map that data lake object to some canonical object called customer 360 data model, so that you will have a single format. You have all the records from wherever it is coming. All of the records are going to be put into a single format, and then you can start using that. Let's see how we do that in the app. Now let me open one of these streams. Now let me open, say, contact services. Now here you can see this is the data lake object that it has created. Whatever information I got from the CRM about contact, I'm just dumping that information into various fields here. So these are the different set of fields that I have. So I'm dumping all of that contact information in my data lake object. Now I need to map it to the canonical model I'm talking about, where you are going to harmonize the data. You are going to put it into a single format. How do you do that? You have an option here on the right side. When you click on the review button, so it would be like create mapping. So I've already created mapping. So you are seeing the review button, but otherwise you would have seen create mapping, where you are going to create the mapping. So here on the left side, while it loads, you can see here on the left side you have the data lake object. This is data lake object, and you have various fields related to the data lake object. And on the right side, you have the data model. This is the model that is provided out of the box by Salesforce, where you can map each of the fields from here to the data model. For instance, in some of the sources, people may call last name as surname, and in Salesforce we call it as last name. So surname is mapped to the last name. So wherever there is a surname in the external systems, you are going to map it to the last name. So you just select the field here and select the other field here. It is going to do the mapping. Salesforce provides these model objects, common model objects for you. Like for instance, here you can see you have contact point address, and then contact point email, and then individual. This is one of the important object, I would say, which is going to store information about the individual, the customer, or the customer profile. So you can do all of these mappings to the objects, and if there is no data model object that is suitable for you, you can also create your own custom data model object and then map the fields. You have the complete flexibility. Now once you map this, you can see all of this information in data model. So here you can see the different objects, various data model objects, and all of these data model objects are related to each other. Okay, let's see how it is related. I know it's very difficult to understand the relationships by looking at this table. So you can also look at the objects in a graphical model. Now when I go to graph, so here you can see I have an individual object. This is the customer. Okay, now I mapped whatever contact information, I mapped it to the individual object. And this individual object can be mapped to different things, like it has contact email, and then it has contact point. These are the different relationships that are created already with the standard data model objects. But if you are creating your own custom data model object, you can also create the relationship there. In our case, we are also getting information from the web search. So you can see that web search engagement is also related to an individual. It's something like a customer. He has purchased the bike, and he is using the bike, and that bike is sending the information. So everything is related to the individual who is the customer, which is it is related to your website interaction, it is related to your product as well. So you can see all of this relationship here in the data model. Okay. Now that we have mapped the data lake object to the data model object, and we also saw that all these objects are related to each other. The next step is, when you get that information, like I said, you are going to get multiple records from multiple sources. Now you need to make it into a single record. So how do you do that? That you are going to do using a step called identity resolution. For instance, let me show an example here. Now you can see all of the data that is flowing into the data cloud through the Data Explorer tab. So I went to Data Explorer tab. Okay, I'm in the Data Explorer tab. I'll select the data model object as the object type, and let me select individual. And I have different users. So one user I want to show you is, let me filter that user maybe. Let me add a filter to find one of the users whom I already know, whose first name is Al Miller, whose first name is Al. Now when I apply this, so here you can see that these are the 5 records which are related to Al Miller. I'm showing the first name here, I'm not showing the last name, no problem. But this is Al Miller, who is having 5 different records. Now you can see that 4 records I got from the interaction. The interaction I've just done, I was searching for the different products. So I got all of that information. So I have 4 records related to Al Miller. And then 1 record I got it from the CRM, the contact object. Now I want to combine all of these things together into one single record. That's what we are going to do in the identity resolution step. Now, if I go to the identity resolution step, so I'll open, let me open the contacts, because I'm going to do the contact stuff. So you are going to do the identity resolution by defining a set of rules, one for matching the records. So how do you identify these 2 records belong to the same customer or same individual? So one possibility is you might look at the first name and last name if it matches, and then you might also want to look at the email. If the email matches, that is more appropriate, right? So these are the different logics that you can use. So you can define a matching rule. So here I have defined a matching rule. So I can say new matching rule, you have 4 different options from which you can choose. I've chosen something called as fuzzy name and normalized email. Now my name is Satya, so it's called as, it is S-A-T-Y-A Satya, but when I go and tell my name, most of the places people write it as S-A-T-H-Y-A Satya. So it is the same person, whether it's S-A-T-Y-A or S-A-T-H-Y-A, so that is the fuzzy logic. I'm going to identify the records based on that matching. So that's what we are doing in the matching rules. Now you are identifying the records. In this case, we have identified 5 records which belongs to Al Miller. After identifying the records, you will have to reconcile. You'll have to see which field has to be taken from which record. Maybe I'll take the email field from my contact record. Maybe I'll take some age-related field or whatever field, or maybe phone field from some other engagement object. So I can get all of that information that you are going to do in the reconciliation rules. So here, for instance, these are the different fields. You have address line, so on and so forth. You have different options on how you can match the fields. So you might want to see whichever is the last updated record. That might be the most recent value of that particular record. Or it could be most frequently used record. So that might have the latest value. So you can decide for each of the fields which type of record you want to use. So that's what you do in the reconciliation process. Once you reconcile, so once you define the rule, in this case, I've also given a rule ID here. So I said IN01. I've defined a rule with some fuzzy name matching and some reconciliation rules. Now what we can do is, you can run it. You can run the rule set manually, or you can also run it asynchronously. You can configure it and let it run more frequently to get the latest information into your data cloud. Now when you run this, how the data would look like. Now let me go back to the data explorer. This time I'll select the data model object, and then I'll select, I called it rule as IN01, right? Or let me call it as individual. So here I have a record called unified individual IN01. This is the set of records that are created by applying your identity resolution rules. Now when you open this, and now if you again go back and search for Al Miller, you can see that it is returning only one record. Now it has applied all of my logic and it has created one unified record for me. Okay. Now if you look at the identity resolution once again, you can also see here on the right side, it has taken from 145 source profiles, now it is showing 141 profiles. That is because we have removed the 4 duplicate Al Millers from there, and we have only one Al Miller. Okay, this is how the identity resolution works. Now this is what we have done. So we have done, as a first step, we have ingested the data, got the data into the data cloud. Second step, we have harmonized the data, and then we have done the identity resolution. Once you have all of that, you can use your data for different things. Like you can activate the data, like I said, now you have the unified data, harmonized unified data. You can use it with Apex, you can use it with Flow, or you can use it with artificial intelligence. So I want to quickly show 2 use cases wherein we can use the artificial intelligence to get the information about the individual, customer, product, whatever it is. The first use case is, I want to send a proactive promotional email with a discount based on browsing history. Now, let us assume one person is browsing a specific product multiple times. Now I go and I search for a AirPad. So I go and I search for AirPad, then I go to Samsung, or I see different types of tablets, and again come back to AirPad, and I multiple times try to search AirPad, which indicates that I'm more interested in purchasing the AirPad. So at that point in time, if someone gives me a promotion of, like, say 20% discount, definitely I will choose it, right? I'll purchase it. So that is use case. So we want to see, based on the interactions, I want to create a promotional email. For that, I'm going to use a concept called data graphs, which is again a concept in your data cloud. I will explain what it is, and then we are going to ground it with the AI. So what we are going to do is, we are going to do 3 steps very quickly here. I've already done it. I'll show it how I've done. The first one is we'll create a data graph. The second one is leverage Apex to query the data graph, and then create email prompt template. Steps might look really complex. Don't really worry about it. Let's see how it is done. Now, the first step is create a data graph. Now, you get the data into your data cloud. It's a large volumes of data. We know processing, writing a SQL query to process large volumes of data itself is more cumbersome, right? So what we can do is we can pre-populate some data in a fixed data structure. So Salesforce provides a concept called data graphs here. So you can create a data graph. Now I can create a data graph for a specific thing, like say product browsing. So whenever product is browsed, I want to store the information in a specific format. I want to pre-populate so that I can directly use it. I need not really run the SQL queries every time. So I can define a graph. I can create a graph. I can say new and create a data graph from scratch. So I've already created it. Let's open and see what it has. When you open this data graph, you can see all the related items. So I have unified individual IN01, which is linked to the actual individual, actual data lake object that we got. So we got the data lake object and we mapped to individual, and then we have created unified individual. So all the related objects you can see here, I just selected unified individual IN01. I want to pre-populate it. Whenever there is a data, it's going to pre-populate and keep it ready for us so that we can use it. So this is one of the most useful concepts. So you can also look at it, like whenever you want to look into the data, you can go into the Data Explorer and see how it has populated. In this case, I can go to Data Explorer, and now I can see a data graph, and I can select the product browse data graph. You can see a list of records. I've just used one of the data graphs. Let's see how it looks like. When I go and view it, so you can see that whenever an interaction happens, it is sending the information. It is sending the first name, last name. It is sending all Miller here, and it is sending all the product browse or product engagement information. Whatever engagement I've done, all of that information it is sending. And you can see all of that in this kind of JSON format. Now you have this information. You can leverage this information. You can access this information from the Apex code. So what I've done is I have written Apex code wherein you can directly use the data graph and get that information from the data graph. For instance, I'm getting that I've written a SQL query only on the data graph. So I already have the pre-populated information ready, and I'm running a SQL query, and I'm getting that information here. Now I use this, and I have created a prompt template for running the sales email. I'll tell you what is prompt template. So this data cloud also provides a feature here. You can access the generative AI from one of the tabs here. You can go to the data model tab, and then you can create a new data model if you want. You want to create some kind of LLM, you can do that stuff, but let's not do that here. I'll show you how I'm going to leverage that. So let me go to setup, and let me search for prompt. I've already created a prompt builder which can use this data to get the information. Now I called it as product browse email. So how many of you have seen prompt builder in the keynote or some other places? Okay, few people. So prompt builder is a tool with which you can create some kind of common prompts. How many of you use ChatGPT? Yeah, everyone, I know. So in ChatGPT, whatever we type in the window, whatever query you type, that can be called as prompt. Not everyone is good at writing those prompts, right? As a Salesforce administrator or developer, you can pre-create some prompts and expose it as with a button to the end user. Now when that end user clicks that button, it can run the prompt and get the response back. So for this sales email, I have created a prompt based on product browsing. So here, once it loads, you can see that I'm using the get product browse data graph. I'm using that Apex class where I'm getting all of that information, and then I'm embedding in the prompt. Here I'm saying that you are a sales representative and you are watching some person who is sales representative in bike manufacturing. You're watching some person who is interested in a specific product. Now you want to send an email to him. So that is I'm setting the context there, and I'm giving some instructions, and I'm also asking it to give some kind of discount if possible. When I've just given the prompt, and when I select a specific user, let us select Al Miller or whosoever it is. So I'll select Al Miller, and let me click on preview. So if you see here, just like in ChatGPT, I have written a prompt, and then I'm accessing the prompt from here. Okay. Now when you run it, here you can see it has created a mail for you. It has created a mail for you. You can also see that it is giving a 20% discount on the Fuse X1 product because I have clicked the Fuse X1 there. So it has created a 20% discount mail, and it is sending. And you can also notice that Salesforce has a trust layer, so it is not going to leak your PII information unlike other LLMs. Okay, so your PII information is always safe. And when you are building the prompts using Prompt Builder, you can also check what are the different fields that are masked. It hasn't sent my name, that is Satyasekhar, the sender's name. It hasn't sent the recipient's name, and everything is masked when it is sending that information to LLM to generate your email. So your email got generated by calling the LLM, just like your ChatGPT. Here also I've used the Open AI GPT 3.5. I could have used the OpenAI GPT 4 as well. So there are different options. I can select from any of the LLMs that I want to use, and I can send a prompt there, and I get the response. Now this sales email is automatically created for you. This is done using the Prompt Builder. And one of the other things we were talking a lot about since morning is agents. So you can create some agent actions to perform few things. So I've already created an agent action based on, let me see another use case to show that agent action here. So the second use case, what I want to do is, I want to conversationally identify top 3 customers based on lifetime miles. And maybe I want to reveal their stats, whatever it is. So to do that, I'm going to use calculated insights. That's one feature of Data Cloud, wherein you can define what kind of insights you want from the data that you already got. Now let us say a customer, you got the information from the bike, different information from the bike. I got the battery status, I got the how many miles they have run, so on and so forth. Now I want to quickly see only the number of miles. I want to create a insight into the number of miles run by each of my customers. And then I want to figure out the top 3 customers and give a some kind of like whatever action I want to take with the top 3 customers. To do that, I've already created an agent. Let me show that agent directly. So let me go to any of my app pages. Maybe I'll go to eBikes app. Sorry, let me open the eBikes app here. Or whatever, wherever I am, no problem. I can always search for that. When I go to the eBikes app and click this Einstein icon on the top right corner, it is going to launch an agent. Now I can ask this agent a question. So let me ask one predefined question. So this is our use case related question. So I'm asking who are my top 3 customers based on distance traveled. So what I've done is, in the backend, I've created an agent action to get that information from my Data Cloud. When asked this question, it is going to analyze this request, it's going to process our agent action, and it is going to get all of that information here. You can see that the top 3 customers are Al Miller, Sophia, and Sienna. So these are the top 3 customers. And it can be more conversational. I can further ask, like, no, out of these 3, who is the number 1 customer? And then I can ask, give a credit or give some discount code for the next purchase for this particular customer. So I can make it more conversational. I can keep on asking the questions, and it is going to process those questions, and it's going to give the response. I know this session is little overwhelming because we have covered so many things in short 45 minutes. Strictly speaking, if you would ask me, I should have covered this in like 2 or 3 hours for sure. But yeah, so I would have rushed through few things, but I'm here around. So whatever questions you have, you can always reach me out. You can also reach me on LinkedIn, and you can also post your questions, anything related to Data Cloud or Agent Builder. And these are the resources. I'll add more resources to it. With that, I want to thank you. If anyone has not taken the resource, thank you so much.